everyone. Today we are going to talk a bit on the speech Divided Times, How Literature Teaches Us to Understand the Other by Amanda Michalopoulou, which you've got to study in your 4th semester Spectrum paper, Spectrum Literature and Contemporary Issues paper. Now, talking about Amanda Michalopoulou is a Greek writer who is the author of 8 novels, 3 collection of short stories and a dozen plus children's books. She studied French literature at the University of Athens and teaches creative writing in various Greek institutions. Her works are translated into almost 20 languages, and she was awarded with various accolades like the Academy of Athens Award for her short story collection Bright Day in the year 2013. International Literature Award for I Would Like, that is a novel, in 2008, and so on. She is the contributing editor of Kadhimerini in Greece and Tagesspiegel in Berlin. Her short story, Mesopotamia, was selected for Best European Fiction in 2018. Her novels include I Would Like, Why I Killed My Best Friend, and God's Wife. This essay that we are going to talk on is Divided Times, How Literature Teaches Us to Understand the Other, is extracted from the opening speech of the 2nd International Literature Festival of Odisha, and it was later on published in The Guardian on 2nd December 2016. This essay was translated from Greek to English by Karen Emmerich. Now, this essay or the speech, Divided Times, How Literature Teaches Us to Understand the Other, is an essay or a speech which talks about what literature is. What is literature? Literature is an encounter with the other. Amanda Michalopoulou says that literature is an encounter with the other. Literature helps you in understanding the other, accommodating and celebrating differences. Literature celebrates multiplicities. It helps us in cultivating humanitarian values and to inspire. It also helps us in inspiring humanitarian or in inspiring sort of an understanding of others. Literature has always been inclusive in nature. It is a space where everyone is provided with an agency to be what they are. Every individual finds a space in the space of literature. Interpretation is an ethical activity of alterity. Writers have always stood with the unrepresented. Amanda Michalopoulou tries to read the classics in a postmodern way in this philosophical essay, Divided Times, How Literature Teaches Us to Understand the Other. We have always heard of heroes. Heroes, who are heroes actually? Heroes are people who do have heroic qualities. Heroic qualities in the sense they should be good enough, they should be decent enough, bold enough, courageous enough. They should question things. You might have seen lots and lots of heroes in literature. Literature from the classic times onwards have always represented anti-heroes as heroes. It has always tried to give a privileged image or a privileged picture or privileged portrayal of the oppressed, of the marginalized, of the other. Amanda here in this particular essay takes 4 classic texts to tell us how literature becomes an encounter with the other, how literature helps us in understanding the marginalized. Let's of course delve into the essay. Yeah, when we are talking about the beginning of this particular essay or speech as such, it begins in a story-like manner. See, you have this once upon a time story kind of thing. Now, in this, she begins in a story-like manner. Once upon a time, there was a Greek, an English, a German, and a Spaniard. So, in order to explain the human condition, 4 writers, a Greek writer, an English writer, a German writer, and a Spanish writer, 4 of them from 4 corners of the world, they actually pick up stories. Now, first of all, when you're talking about the Greek writer, the Greek man writes about a story, about the story of a man who's tossed about on the seas after a war, and when he finally reaches home, after all lots and lots of perils, finally he reaches home, he returns home. Nobody, not even his wife, recognizes him. Now this particular story, this first story, the Greek story mentioned is of course Odysseus by Homer. I hope you might be familiar with this Odysseus, the hero Odysseus, the classic Odysseus, the hero. Odysseus was actually the king of Ithaca. He was the wisest man in the Trojan War and actually the man behind, or the brain behind, the destruction of Troy. After going through all sorts of perils in the sea, Odysseus landed the Phaeacian coast. Now, when Odysseus lands the Phaeacian coast, he is equal to, or he is a man who had not had water or food for almost 17 long days, and he had gone through lots and lots of hardships in the sea, and ultimately when he lands the Phaeacian shore, what he needs is a temporary rest and a shelter. He, as Amanda Michalopoulou says, resembled the contemporary refugees who had to flee from their own homes and land to some unknown places, unknown lands, as they would also be bearing the hardships like anyone who has been expelled from their homeland or compelled to leave from their homeland. They would obviously resemble our classic hero, our classic hero Odysseus, who is quite horrible to look at, quite dirty and scary. Now, in the eyes of Nausicaa, you have in the Phaeacian shore, on the Phaeacian land, the coast, you have this Nausicaa and her servants, her maids actually. In the eyes of Nausicaa, who is the beautiful princess of this island, and her attendants or the maidens, he seemed terrifying. Like in quote, it's there in your book, he seemed terrifying, like some hell-kept lion who advances, though he is rained on and blown by the wind, and both eyes kindle. He goes out after cattle or sheep, it may be deer in the wilderness, and his belly is urgent upon him to get inside of those of a close steeding and go for the sheep flocks. So Odysseus was ready to face young girls. So you should always have in mind Odysseus as a very scary, very dirty person, filthy sort of a person who lands an unknown land altogether, who has been in the sea for almost days and days without water, without food, and ultimately when he reaches the unknown land, what he needs is some food, some water and some shelter. And he is a person who has not seen any human being before. I mean, for almost days and days, 17 long days, he has not seen any human being. So in that case, what happens is, he craves for, there is an urgency in him to meet people, to see people, to understand people, to have food, to have water, and he does have this, all kinds of desires and all kinds of urges in him. So Odysseus, when all the attendants and attendants of Nausicaa, when they saw Odysseus, they fled in terror, and it was only the princess Nausicaa who pitied the forlorn condition of the stranger and addressed him with a very kind and sympathetic words. Now here, what we should understand is Odysseus is a classic work by Homer, and here the protagonist or the hero Odysseus resembles a refugee, a contemporary refugee, who is so scary to look at to the other characters of the story. So when you're taking the whole of the work as a world in itself, you have other characters of the story who objectifies or who others Odysseus in every way. So they understand the other, anybody who comes to their land as an other, as the other, an alien, as they are taught to think when they encounter something or somebody who is not like them. See, when we are taught in a very different way, or we are taught in a very peculiar way to treat somebody who is not like us. See, we always have a tendency to marginalize, to other those people who are not like us, who are different from us. So when they encounter, so these people there in the land are actually taught in a peculiar way, in an unusual way, to behave towards a foreigner. So it's only when Nausicaa as a person, Nausicaa goes near Odysseus, talks to him, understand him, that she and the whole of the Phaeacians realize that there is nothing scary in him. All the heroes that we see in literary works are really anti-heroes. Odysseus, when he lands the coast of Phaeacians, does not have any sort of heroic qualities. He is a shipwrecked and filthy sailor who is at first, when you see him, as I told you before, he is quite scary to look at, somebody who cannot be loved. Now he becomes a hero only when he is washed and cleaned. Now literature does give representation to the filthy, the scary and the terrific, and once you get acquainted with this particular people, these kinds of filthy, scary and terrific people in the world of literature, they are no more the other, they become heroes. So literature gives us a very privileged and very beautiful image of the anti-hero. So anti-hero, to talk about anti-hero, to define anti-hero, anti-hero is a person who fights all odds, fights against authority and has to go through all kinds of perils and filth. In that case, we can take Ulysses as an anti-hero as well as a hero. Now, Odysseus is modern. Amanda Michalopoulou says that Odysseus could be read in a modern way or could be treated as a very modern work because it represents the other. Odysseus, the protagonist, is a hero, anti-hero come hero, who is a representation, a symbol of the other, the marginalized, the refugee in the modern world. It lets us, the whole of the classic work Odysseus lets us understand the problems of modern refugees, understand the problems that the modern refugees have to go through day after day. Now literature, as I told you, gives a very privileged position to the other by including them. Literature, as I told you before, is very much inclusive. It includes everyone. So by including these others, anti-heroes, into the world of literature, and it helps the readers by including others, by including the marginalized into the world of literature, by giving them a privileged position, by making them heroes. Literature helps the readers as well to become more inclusive in nature. Yeah, as I told you in the very beginning, the whole of the speech, the whole of the essay, Divided Times, is narrated in a story-like manner. You have this: once upon a time there was a Greek and Englishman. Now the second story is narrated by the Englishman. The second story by the Englishman is trying to decipher or trying to understand the human condition by telling a story. Now the Englishman tells the story of a young indecisive prince who can't decide whether life is worth it. Now the story or the text or the play, the classic text which here referred to is Hamlet by Shakespeare. Hamlet, the protagonist of Shakespeare's Hamlet, is the Prince of Denmark who sees at the very beginning of the play, he sees the ghost of his father and who tells him about his murder. Now, what is Hamlet supposed to do? Hamlet is supposed to take revenge on his father's murderer, who is Claudius, who is his uncle at the same time and who has got some sort of a kind of a relationship with his mother as well. Now, because of his indecisive nature that is there in him, so very inbuilt in him, he is not able to do it, and thus he becomes the anti-hero. Now, he sees ghosts, he feigns madness and is quite bizarre in the eyes of Claudius and Gertrude. Gertrude is his mother. Now, Hamlet is always haunted by this question, to be or not to be. I hope you're familiar with that famous to be or not to be. He does not possess, in that way, he does not possess any of the heroic qualities. Instead, what he does is, he thinks of killing himself. He is not bold enough to kill his enemy. Instead, he wants to commit suicide. He wants to kill himself. Even though he gets lots and lots of chances to kill his enemy, he does not dare to do that. This indecisive quality in him, the way he procrastinates his revenge, the way he feigns madness, all these things make him an anti-hero. Now, Shakespeare is trying to give representation of this anti-hero, this marginalized other, this kind of a person who does not have any heroic qualities. He is trying to accommodate him. He is trying to give representation to this kind of a character through the play Hamlet by making him a hero. Shakespeare makes Hamlet the hero. So, through the space of literature, the common man, the othered man, the madman, the marginalized man, the indecisive man, the man who does not have any sort of heroic qualities become heroes. Now, the third story is told by the Spaniard. The third book Amanda refers to here is the Spanish classic Don Quixote by Cervantes. This particular book talks about a gentleman, Alonso Quijano, who is very much infatuated by reading chivalric romances, and he decides to become a knight and assumes the name Don Quixote. Now he sets on a series of adventures along with his peasant Sancho Panza, who acts as a sort of a squire for him because he had promised him an island to rule at the end of this journey. Now this particular man, Don Quixote, is seen as a madman by the villagers he encounters on his way, and he describes himself as a wandering knight, as an ambassador of God on earth. People mock at him, people considers them, including Sancho Panza, Quixote and Sancho Panza, considers them, both of them, as strange and ridiculous. People even pelt stones at them. Now here we see a classic work which gives agency and voice to the other. Now here he is an anti-hero. Don Quixote is an anti-hero in every sense, and literature has given space to this anti-hero, this marginalized man who does not conform himself to the authoritarian structure. He tries to flee himself from it, escapes into the world of imagination. So literature is a space which gives space to these kinds of marginalized heroes. Now the fourth classic work that Amanda refers to here is The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe. Now this work, The Sorrows of Young Werther, is a series of letters and the melancholic experience and unfortunate events of Werther, a sensitive, artistic young man who falls in love with Charlotte, who is of course the fiancée and later on the wife of Albert. Now though at first when he falls in love with this lady, he understands that this relationship will never work, or this relationship will never result in fulfillment in marriage. He cannot move away, and both of them continue with their relationship. And Charlotte gets married to Albert, and though she does not want to end this relationship, she ends this relationship altogether because of the respect that she has towards her husband Albert on the one hand, as well as the respect that she has towards Werther. Now, Werther, on the other hand, does not have any other option other than committing suicide, and he commits suicide. Now, here in this particular story, we see, this is a classic work, and in this story we see the portrayal of an anti-hero, a protagonist, a hero who is so very afflicted with love, he is quite emotional, quite sensitive, and at the end of it he becomes quite helpless and becomes so fed up with everything that he had no other option except to commit suicide. Now all these classic works, you do have many more classic works which Amanda is not talking about, but then she takes 4 very important classic works to let us understand how in classic works how anti-heroes are transformed into heroes, or how other is getting represented through literature. So all these classic works which is detailed here, the 4 classic works, according to Amanda, describe anti-heroes as heroes. Heroes, you have helpless heroes, you have indecisive heroes, you have heroes who lack courage enough, who even, there are heroes who even contemplate suicide, you have heroes who commit suicide, you have heroes who could be likened to refugees. All these people, all these kinds of anti-heroes, all these kinds of individuals are given a space in literature. So literature as such is the only platform where everyone, every individual, every singularity gets represented. Literature incorporates all the others, or incorporates the other, the marginalized, in all its quirks and peculiarities to the social body. So these people who are represented are part of the society, and literature embraces the other, embraces the marginalized, embraces the other, and beautifies the other by providing them with a privileged position. Now literature accommodates and includes or allows for all sorts of differences. Difference becomes a sign of courage. Difference becomes heroic in them. See, it is difference which makes them heroes. Now the hero is he who chooses to be what he is. Like you have Stephen Dedalus in The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. A hero is a man who chooses to be, who chooses to fight for his freedom, who whether that freedom could be for his ideas, for his aesthetic, whatever it is, he chooses to be. Literature as such tells you to think differently. Now reading works of literature, what does reading do now? Reading great works of literature, reading any literature for that matter, helps you to encounter the other in different forms, in different varieties. You have different forms, different characters, different places getting represented in literature. You go, when you read, what happens is you go and understand. You are into the character, you are into the place, you are into the context, and thus you get to understand. So literature gives representation to the unrepresented. All the other discourses, you have anthropology, you have psychology, you have sociology, etc., which of course gives you a theoretical understanding of everything. Of course, you get a theoretical understanding of what society is, what life is, what psyche is from these kinds of work, discourses like anthropology, like psychology, like sociology, whatever it is. But it is literature who shows you, who lets you be, or who shows you through different lives, different places, different characters, and different context, what it means to be different. So a reader, somebody has said, a reader lives thousands of lives, and each and every life that a reader lives is of course different from the life that he had before. So in one particular novel itself, what happens is you get to understand different characters, you get to go through different characters, you become different people, right? So you can understand what it is to be different people at the same time. So literature helps us in understanding others in different ways. So literature is of course considered as an imitation of an action, a mode of understanding of human mind and human heart. So every emotion, every individual, every feeling, every sentiment gets represented in literature. Everything is important in literature, whether it is guilt, jealousy, despair, violence, anxiety, irrationality, fear, whatever it is, it gets represented in the space of literature. Now, reading as such is the means where you encounter the other, where you get acquainted with the other, where you understand the differences of the other, where by understanding them, you accept them and celebrate differences. You do not focus much on uniforming, you celebrate differences in literature. literature. So thus, those people who have read great classics of literature, you get to know refugees like Odysseus, Robinson Crusoe, Friday, etc. You could be able to relate the present refugee, the contemporary refugees, to these people who could be heroes. And then what happens? What happens once you get to know them, once you get acquainted with them, once you understand them, you include them, you accept them, and you will never treat a reading man a person who reads literature will never treat refugees as a homogeneous group of people, mass of people who have come to tyrannize the West or who have come to tyrannize any other part of the world. If we read literature, that will help you in understanding those refugees who had to flee from their own land, who had to flee from their own places, their own homes, their own shelters to other countries just to survive, just to keep on living, though they are quite fed up with life and have lost complete hope in living. So Amanda, to wind up, Amanda says, you just encounter the other, get acquainted with them, understand them in all their differences, and accept these people, accept everyone as individuals like any other. See, literature is the only platform which plays a great role in this inclusiveness, and one who reads will never marginalize any other individual. So read well. As literature, it is only literature which helps you which would help you in becoming a better human being. Thank you.